Hello, Namaskar and a very good evening to all the viewers watching at this particular session. Welcome to NCERT's live interactive session. I am your host for this particular session, Simran Singh. So throughout the live interactive communication, you can interact with us through different mediums. The first one is that you are watching us on PMeVIDYA channel number 9. Besides that, you can also connect with us through our YouTube channel that you all know. It is NCERT official. So it's the 5th day of our online training on digital pedagogy that we have been conducting since past 5 days to give you more information regarding digital pedagogical approaches and the practices that you can use in your classroom scenario. So here the topic that we are going to discuss today is empower learners using digital assessments. And the broader areas that we have discussed so far deals with the concept, scope and the policy perspective of digital pedagogy, then how to engage learners digitally and also how to navigate internet, that is web, responsibly. Following that, we also discussed yesterday about design digital learning experience, and today it's empower learners using digital assessments. And I hope the way you have enjoyed our 4 previous sessions, you are going to love this particular session. Well, as you all know that once we conclude our 5 days online training session, we also have a post-session activity for all of you. That is our quiz. And in the later segment of this particular session, I am going to provide you all the details about how you can connect with us, how you can access the quiz, where are you going to find it, how you can access our website and get to know more about it. But let's quickly discuss more about today's session and who are the experts who have joined with us in the studio so that they can empower all the learners using digital assessments. So here in the conversation we have with us Ms. Shreya Tiwari. Namaskar, ma'am.
Namaste, Simran.
Good evening again. Welcome to NCERT. Ma'am is Associate National Project Officer, Teacher Training from UNESCO MGIP. Then we also have with us in the studio, as you can watch, Ms. Renuka Rotela. Namaskar, ma'am. Good evening. Welcoming you in the session. Ma'am is Associate National Project Officer at Teacher Training from UNESCO MGIEP. And let me also inform you that we have conducted this 5 days online training session in collaboration with UNESCO MGIEP, which is UNESCO's Category 1 Research Institute and that focuses on Sustainable Development Goal 4.7 towards education for building peaceful and sustainable societies across the world. So let's quickly begin this discussion on how our experts are going to empower all of you with the help of digital assessments. So in today's conversation, as you all know that the mediums through which you can connect with us is the YouTube channel of NCERT Official. The comment box is there for all our viewers. Besides, here is a contact number that is flashing on your screens. So feel free to give us a call at 8800-440-559 and also a mail ID for all of you flashing on the screens. training.helpdesk@ciet.nic.in. So Shreya ma'am, now I'd request you to please apprise our viewers more about today's session and also give them a recap of the areas that we have discussed so far.
Absolutely, Simran. Thank you. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for such great engagement you have shown in the last 4 days with us. As we've shared with you yesterday as well, today we're going to spend time talking about assessments. We will first of all, talk about how is it that we can integrate assessments and which are the various ways in which assessments can be used for empowering purposes. And to do that, we want to first of all acknowledge and thank all of you for the kind of insightful questions that you have shared with us in yesterday's session. We did our homework, we tried our best, and we tried to pick up some questions that you had put in the chat box. And we are now thinking of starting with those questions. And through some of those questions, we will arrive at what are assessments that eventually help us and our learners feel more empowered. After having spoken about that, we are going to talk about the nature of learning, right? That's something that Renuka will be taking us through. And then we're going to give you a brief update so that you and us at UNESCO MGIEP can stay connected even after this workshop. So let's get started, and we'd like to give you a glimpse of a few questions that you had posed. Thank you so much for sharing so candidly these kind of questions. I can see a range of questions around assessments. A very nice question that was asked by someone yesterday was around project-based learning. when we do project-based learning, what is it that I should be assessing? Because clearly there's a host of skills there. Someone else has asked us about sports. Can sports be used as assessment? Someone else also mentioned about how paper pen tests are so restrictive in nature, and what can we do therefore? I'm adding this bit, what is it that we can do that captures the practical skills that children have as well? There's also a wonderful question on the nature of evaluation. Another person who has talked to us about, a barrier that a child is facing, which is around family situations. So here's a question to you, Renuka. What is it that you see as you look at these questions? How would you respond to them?
Shreya, I think I would like to start by maybe just quickly glimpsing back at the questions. And I think, when I was looking at these questions, one, they are very empowering, to know that there are teachers who are really thinking in that depth, right? It's not just the quantity, it's not the number of comments that we're talking about. We're talking about the depth, the intention, which is so authentic clearly here. And I think, as of course, each of these questions in itself requires a lot of brainstorming, and the context of understanding where you're coming from, where are your students coming from is really important. Sure. And perhaps, to even address one question, we would require a much larger conversation. Sure. But I feel that just to make meaning and to make sense of what we can still take away, I think we can begin to understand the learner as the center. And I was looking at some of the questions, and I think a good place to start and a good suggestion could also be like thinking about our learner. When we talk about what we want to teach our learner, when we talk about how we want to teach our learner, when we talk about what kind of applications and tools we might want to use, and what kind of preparation does it require, right? When we ask all of these questions, I think somewhere we need to look at our learner, and we need to understand that this one single learner is inspired, is influenced, is impacted by many other people and things around them. Like for instance, I can think about, like a child who's in your class, a student who's in your class. They're not just a body, right? They have their family, they have their friends, they have their peers, they have US teachers who are all impacting them directly. And then if you take a step further, you see that how the families and the school and the peers are interacting with the outer system, right? How the media is outside, how you have the political structure around the global economy. So everything is impacting who this learner is. So
true, and they're so interconnected that they're impacting every experience that a child is having. Right. In fact, one of our learners yesterday, one of our participants in the chat box had also shared how the barriers are not just perhaps what we were just talking about yesterday between Shraddha and me, but also, like you said, they're so social in nature. Something can be so linguistic, something can be about a simple, engagement. There can be so many types of barriers that exist, like you're rightly pointing out.
Absolutely. And that's why when we think of designing, whatever digital tools inside our classroom spaces, it's so important to start acknowledging that these barriers exist. And acknowledging is a great place to start, because when you start, when you've been able to acknowledge, you've been able to articulate that, it gives you a scope of what can I do next. Most of the times you will realize in the system, we don't know what the problem is, right? So identifying the problem is a great place to start thinking about how to resolve it. And I think a very equal point, and I want to really connect this back to perhaps something that even Dr. Nandini said in day 1, and we got a little bit of touch of that in day 3 as well, is understanding how we function as human beings. And this is not just applicable to learners, but also you, and also applicable to me, right? So when we look at the human brain, and the picture is there on your screen, you realize that the brain is not compartmental. It's not that you have a whole set of cognition which is on the side, and all your problem solving, factual information, decision making is on one side. You will realize that the brain also has an emotional and a social part, and all of this is connected together. One of the things which I realized, Shreya, when we interact with our teachers, and maybe this is just completely the Bollywood influence, but how we talk about that emotions are from the heart. So many a times the emotion conversation in a classroom spaces does not make sense, because it's not connected to the brain,
or it's not connected to the syllabus,
Absolutely.
Right.
But the reality is that our brain, it has a cognition part, has a part which is responsible for emotions and the social interaction relationship that we develop, and they're all influencing cognition. So what we're trying to really communicate here is, and back to the slides, is that learning is a social, emotional and a cognitive process, right? So if you want your kids to be doing great on your academics and your learning outcomes, right, one of the ways to look at that also is that, are my children feeling welcomed? Are they feeling safe? Are their emotions being given an opportunity inside the classroom or in the assessment that I'm developing, right? We were talking about learner variability, different kinds of modalities we're talking. So is there a space for the learner to bring bring who they are? And I think for us, as we look at today's, maybe I can just request the slides to be on once again, and just summarizing this for you. So just as today, as we experience the session today is going to be a lot about assessments, right? And what kind of assessments and how do we do assessments? But my urge to you and my invite to you is that as you look at today's session, and as you go back to look at all the other sessions, try really bringing in this part that how the human being and the learner inside your classroom is a social, emotional entity as well.
True.
And I think a quick example of that could also be that, you know, like there are days when we, and I'm sure you've also experienced something like that, that there are days when, you know, you get up in the morning and you maybe have a fight with your spouse, right? Or you've had a fight with somebody in the family and a little argument, but how it really impacts the rest of your day.
True.
And our learners are also coming from families like ours, right? So they also perhaps have altercations at home, or they, you know, something is upsetting them, maybe about the world, maybe about climate change, right? And they're upset about it. And when they're stepping inside your classroom, they're coming with all those fears. They're coming with all those emotions, good or bad, whatever they be, but they're coming with all of that. And so as a teacher in the learning space, it becomes our prerogative. It becomes really important for us to give space to that and design whatever learning interventions we want to design.
Yes, that's
and
very
design our
important.
digital tools.
Thank you, Renuka. In fact, you know, as we're talking about assessments, I'm realizing a very important element that I'm sure most of our teachers today would be agreeing with is the role that assessments have on emotions of learners. What is the relationship of assessment and learning? I think that's a very threatened relationship that most of you would agree with. There is some kind of anxiety that we all know and are aware of what's going on in this, not just in this country, but I think across the world. The whole relationship between assessments and learning needs to be re-looked at. And today, as you were saying, thank you so much for pointing this out, Renuka, this is an opportunity for us to rethink assessments and to meaningfully be able to integrate technology wherever needed, wisely, judiciously, wherever needed, to integrate technology and see if that helps create a safe environment even for assessments. Having said that, I want to move on and talk about, you know, give you a very quick recap on what we have done so far. So as you all remember, on day 1, we discussed about digital pedagogy. Now, what is digital pedagogy? It's a purposeful use of technology to enrich learning. I want to bring your attention to the term purposeful here, please, so that you know that you're using it for the right purpose, not just because any tool needs to be integrated for a digital classroom. So the right and the purposeful use becomes very important. That's what digital pedagogy is. On day 2, we spoke about how do we therefore engage learners digitally, where we spoke about learner variability. And we also shared that learner variability, identifying this learner variability and addressing it is critical for engagement. And we also spoke about the strategy of CDC for engagement, out of the many that are there. On day 3, we spoke about navigating responsibly, where we discussed some digital tools and resources that can be used to address the student learning barriers. On day 4, we talked about, which was yesterday, about how do you therefore use all this information about learner variability, about being responsibly using the web, having digital identity, etc., and mindful posting, etc., and be able to create and pick the right tools to create the right learning experience. So we said, let's proactively identify learning barriers, address them, and design, therefore, a learning experience. And today, as we're talking about assessments, keeping in mind what Renuka just spoke about, of assessments being unthreatening, assessments being safe, assessments being fun, assessments being empowering. Empowering not just the teacher but the learner who owns her own learning. And today we're going to talk about how such assessments can be designed using some digital tools. So, a central question. Who are we assessing and what are we assessing? Is assessment done for learning purposes or is assessment being done of the learning? Now, if one can argue, right, what is the difference between the two? Do you want to share quick thoughts on what do you think, how do you think these two are different?
So I feel that when you think about assessment of learning, I feel like it's like a closure. It's like at the end, you know, you want to measure everything that I've covered so far. But when you say assessment for learning, I feel that there is an opportunity to grow, right?
Sure.
Like you're not going to reprimand me, you're not going to be punishing me, you're going to be, we're going to take a test, whatever that kind of test could be, but then there is scope for improvement. You're going to give me some meaningful feedback. I think that's how I would.
That's how you associate it with as a learner. We perhaps think that's great, and that's true. So I would in fact want to flip it right now. Just because as a teacher, we are talking to teachers here, I want to flip it and say, let you as a teacher decide which one you want to choose. Now it doesn't mean that there has to be only one choice all the time. There will be times where you will have to choose one over the other. You may decide that when I am assessing something for learning, it is for me, the teacher, to understand, hey, what is my child's learning barrier here? What is this child's learning preference here? What is this child's expression here? You may want to decide that. So that becomes assessments that are for learnings, which makes a teacher, gives the teacher the data to be able to design an effective solution, right? And similarly, in the process, as we're going to talk about strategies in future, in the coming slides, it also eventually you will realize the learners also get, empowered and feel connected to this learning experience, just like Renuka said, that I don't feel threatened if you say I'm assessing for learning. So you're asking me questions so that you know how much I know and then you can help me learn them better. So it's that experience, right, that gets created. And today that's what we're going to talk most about. So if we were to say, therefore, that if our goal is to make expert learners, right? Again, expert learner is a terminology that's been picked up from the UDL framework. For those of you who have, who want to revise and go back to UDL, please go back to the web safely and responsibly and learn about UDL. There is another resource that you have about where you can learn about UDL, which we will talk about towards the end of this course. But if we were to make an expert learner, what would that mean? It would mean learners who are purposeful, who are knowledgeable and who are strategic, which means they are able to design their own learning experience, they are able to navigate through and organize themselves, and able to get the right resources and take charge of their learning. Now, to do that, we need teachers to play a whole new kind of a role. That new role that we're talking about is a shift. That's a shift in what we suggest that you make to become from a teacher who is just now a giver of knowledge to a facilitator, which means a person who is facilitating certain experiences for all the children's barriers and learning preferences to be addressed, right? So here are the three critical and suggested strategies for you to consider when you design assessments. The first one, providing multiple options for demonstrating knowledge and skills, which means, can we think of multiple options? Can you as a teacher think of multiple options where a learner can show what they know, right? We're going to talk about it through an example as well. And multiple options for the learner to demonstrate the skills that they know. So for example, one of the questions that we had highlighted earlier also was, can we think of sports for assessment? I would urge you all to think and reflect and share your thoughts on the chat with us. Do you think sports can be used as assessments? Do you think paper pencil test is restrictive for a certain practical knowledge? We urge you to think whether there is a possibility of having multiple options for a child using non-paper pencil tests to demonstrate what they know, right? That's principle 1. Second principle is involving students in their assessments. Now, why do you want to involve them? You want to involve them because they need to take charge of their learning, so that they feel that, hey, I haven't learned this well enough. I don't think I understand the water cycle very well, sir. You know, so they can come back and ask you. You remember metacognition is something that our NCF also speaks about? That's the skill we are talking about. We are saying the ability for the child to be able to understand how I learn and be able to come back to you and say, sir, I haven't understood this. Can you help me? And this is where I think I'm struggling. So how do you involve your students so they can take charge of their learning as well? And third, most important, is using formative assessments. And there are several ways in which you can use them, okay? I will very quickly move on to the first one and give you an example for this. So how can you make a tool? How can digital tools be used for designing flexible assessments? Now picture a situation, okay? For example, you have an assignment and your students have probably, imagine, gone out for a field visit. It can be something as simple as, the harvest cycle in the gaon, and you want them to write about it, or you want them to present their understanding about it. Do you see? The difference is that when you want them to present what they know, you are able to build in more options. So for example, A, you can ask those who prefer to write a synthesis report. Those who prefer to create a visual map, you can say, hey, that's an option number 2. Or number 3 can be to develop a video or an audio where they want to present what they know, what they saw. Option number 4, they can prepare a presentation for you with maybe a voice narration. And there can be option number 5, 6, 7, 8, which we urge you to think about. So just imagine this variety of options that you are able to create is only allowing for different types of learnings to be demonstrated and shared with you, right? And you're using a digital tool. Again, now which tool should you use if a child wants to make a presentation? You know there are several tools available for that which are free of cost. You know that even if it's a child from who doesn't have a laptop access, maybe, how can that child share the learning? Maybe if there is a device, the child can use something as simple as an audio recorder to share understanding. But will you as a teacher be okay with that? Because you have to allow for that flexibility to be built into the assessments, right? So that was the example of the first one. The second one, how can we involve students in assessments? Now there are several ways of doing this, okay? Several ways could be, for example, giving the students the charge. Giving the students the charge of their own learning by letting them organize what they need to learn. So once they know the objective, let them organize, give them checklists, which maybe give them reminders that we spoke about yesterday, right? So they can start monitoring their own progress. Give them like a map which they can identify and start checking out. So they have a visual representation of their journey of learning. They can use, you can have several types of Google Forms which can be sent out, just to make sure that they are able to check in with you if they're getting stuck, right? They can tell you where they're getting stuck, or they can give you feedback. You can use Google Forms in terms of peer exercises that you have designed. So peers are able to also comment on what my friend is able to learn, is able to support, and what is that my friend is able to do which I wasn't able to do, right? So imagine a system like that which you can create using a simple tool of Google Form, which I'm sure most of you have done. You can start using YouTube as a simple resource for children to start uploading what they know, right? They can start sharing the digital products like that. You could also use something as simple as a Basecamp, which is like a project management tool. We would urge you to look it up, even a Padlet wall. And there are several other Google Classrooms. This is the way it's organized for students to be able to see their objective, and see how they are performing on it. Okay. Now finally, on the third bit, how do we use formative assessment and the data coming in from there? Now there are several tools in which you can use that you can use for assessment purposes. Now again, like we discussed in the beginning, is assessment for you or for the learner or for both? You will have to make that choice. And there are several tools available which are really fun. They are like play, and we would also encourage you to think of sports as an assessment tool wherever you need it. Because if you would, for example, say, I want to understand how collaborative my learners are, right? If that's a skill, then you might want to see, sports will give you enough data. You know, I have done this. I remember in a workshop that I was running with few of my school principals in the space of school leadership, because we realized as a leader you need a lot of collaboration. So we played games of frisbee. And you know, during the game of frisbee, you're able to tell who's sending the frisbee to whom. You're able to talk about, you know, biases like, you know, I did not send it to a lady teacher because I'm a male, because I felt she will not be able to catch it and we will lose. Now, where is this coming from, right? So you're able to see a lot, even in sports, how you react when you're under pressure. These are all skills that we talk about. So very quickly, just want to tell you that sports therefore can be used for assessment depending on what you are assessing. Storytelling, you can get peep into the child's mind by the stories he or she is sharing. You can use games like Nearpod, Kahoot, which are free of cost and are very interactive and in a quiz style. All of this gives you data to talk about what a child is learning and where a child is getting stuck. Okay. So very quickly, also coming back to the kind of questions that you know, you had asked us initially. So are there tools available for you know, for teaching maths, science, history, chemistry? Yes, there are. In fact, there are also tools which are, you know, there's technology of, you know, personalized adaptive softwares which are available, you know, which are offered by organizations like, you know, like the Bejus or, you know, Convigenius, or, you know, several, Khan Academy. There are several like this which you can use, which you'll have to of course see which one is a freer version that can be used. But the benefit of these platforms is that they embed the resource, they embed assessments, and they also therefore are able to, for the teacher, share student insights. Now, I'm not saying every child will be able to have their own device and be on a Khan Academy app. I understand that. But just for those who asked me this question, I wanted to share that there are these things available. In other types of things that are also available are resources. So, you know, National Geographic has a lot of resources. There is a technology for augmented reality. You know, for example, if you would take a picture right now, you know, there's a Google app which is very interesting, and I would urge some of our participants to try it out and share in the chat box. If you take a picture, you can have an animal of a panda or something sitting right next to me. That's all augmented reality, right? So that's something that you can start using just to explore features of animals or any other location. You have history apps like that, you have chemistry labs like that. So several things available. We urge you to go on Google, type in top 10 apps, top 10 resources or digital tools that I can use to teach chemistry, and you will find them. Finally, we are now going to tell you where it is that we are drawing all of this from. There is a course. If you wish to know more about what we have discussed in these last 5 days, there is a course that we offer which is called The Digital Teacher. The link of that course is on your screen now. You can go in and access www.framerspace.com. It has a host of courses, and the one that we have derived most of our knowledge from is the Digital Teacher course, which is about a 20 to 25 hour course, and it's free of cost, and it has a certification at the end of it. Renuka, I urge you to also talk about very quickly about the other courses that are offered by UNESCO and CIP.
So, yeah, sorry to. So we have more courses at UNESCO MJIP, and all of these are online digital courses which are self-paced, completely self-paced. A few of them are also supported with live sessions to make it more interactive and meaningful for the target audience. But quickly on your screen you can see that we have courses for teachers, students and youth. And for teachers, Shreya's already, of course, for the last 5 days what you're actually viewing is like a sneak peek of the digital teacher course. So that's one course certainly, and the other course that we have is the social emotional learning course for schools, which is also called the SEL for schools, where we're talking about well-being of teachers and students and providing them tools to navigate the challenges of the teaching profession and those of inside the classroom spaces. And then we have courses for students, like you can see clearly, biodiversity, climate change, games for learning, global citizenship. Again, these are one of the most widely loved courses, and again, we would urge you that if you have students in your school, of course you have students, but if you have access to digital devices, or you have, there is some way in which you can integrate them as part of your curriculum, integrate them, then please do reach out. Of course, Framerspace, or you can check them on framerspace.com. You can also connect with us. And also for youth, we have two courses, which is SEL for Youth Waging Peace, and Seek, again, two courses which are focusing a lot on well-being, mental well-being of youth, anybody in the age group of 16 to 35 to be precise. So we have a gamut, a packet of a lot of courses for you.
Which are all free of cost.
Which are all free of cost,
and
absolutely.
easily accessible. And a lot of our JNV friends who would be watching this are already taking this course, the SEL course and the digital teacher course.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, Simran.
So I think with that we have covered all the important details that were meant to be covered in this session.
Yes, we believe so.
Very good. We still have around 16 to 18 minutes left in this conversation. For 8 or 10 minutes we'll take your queries, and then I'll guide you more about the quiz. So you all have been asking us like how you can access our quiz link and all. So just wait for 5 to 10 more minutes. So we have your queries over here. So shall we start?
Yes, please.
So okay. One of our viewers, Ikra Sheikh Ji, has asked us how to deal with students of same age with different levels of understanding.
Do you want to take that?
Yeah. So I think I can share it from my personal experience with being inside the classroom space. So of course, in any classroom, needless or wherever you are, there'll always be different kind of abilities, right? So we can talk about learning abilities can be one way of looking at it. Maybe some kids are extremely good with competencies like maybe attitudes of collaboration, or they're much kinder. So we'll have learners of different variability. And I think especially if you're talking about learning outcomes, then one thing that I would do was more often I would create differentiated learning material. So let's say you, and I used to teach science and physics. So let's say there's one common topic of you're doing the laws of motion. So of course laws of motion remain the same, but how and who needs what kind of support is something that I would decide. So there were some kids who perhaps had challenges with solving numericals, but tracing that problem was emerging because there was a learning gap of linear equations. So supporting them and curating a slightly remodeled material for them where we work on the basics and then we escalate. So they remember the outcome is always the same. I want all the kids to be able to let's say solve numericals for the laws of motion, but the process, the differentiated resources that you would apply can change. And because we're talking about digital pedagogy, then I can also say that especially for science, there is so much material available, right? There are interactives, very basic interactives to interactives which can be for much senior grades. So maybe for a kid who is not at the same stage level, then maybe try providing them something much simpler and make it meaningful. But basically staggering it over and scaffolding it and having differentiated support really helps.
Thank you. Let's have our next question from Bani Preet Kaurji. So she is one of our regular viewers and we have been answering her questions in our session. So once again she has asked us, could digital pedagogy make students skilled in ICT also, or is it only about learning through digital mediums?
Bani ji, I would request you to answer this question now. But very quickly, just to give you a hint, what is ICT? Right? I think the landscape has moved. What do you want children when they grow up to be empowered with? Do you want them just to be able to work on MS Office or an office tool, do Excels and do MS, Word, whatever? Or do you want them to become learners who are able to very quickly learn something, or if it's not relevant, chuck it out of the window and learn something new? Now, which one would you prefer? We argue that digital pedagogy allows you to be in sync with that vision, and then you decide whether you want to train the child on ICT or digital pedagogy. The idea is not for a child to learn a lot of technology. This is just a means to do what? Not to learn technology, but to be able to make sure that what I'm thinking, I can express it. What I know, I can find various ways to express it. For you as a teacher to understand what I know and be able to give me feedback. Right? So this is just a medium. Let's not treat the knowledge of any technology as the whole soul, at least in the school age, right? There are specialist courses available in the degree colleges for that. Let's keep it to that purpose. Here we use it as a medium for meaningful and purposeful engagement.
Then we have another question from Gari Melaji. He has asked us, students after integration of technology are developing this new habit of copy pasting, that is copy pasting their assignments from different students, and which might affect their creative imagination very badly. So what is it we can do to avoid that?
I think one thing I maybe Priya, you can add to this. First of all, it depends on what kind of assessments and assignments we are giving to our students, right?
What is prompting the child to copy paste and not share her original thought?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And I think, so a deeper introspection in what we want to ask and what is the purpose has to come back to us as teachers as a starting point. Yes, there will be, I'm sure like there will be opportunities for students to also copy paste, but can we in that system create opportunities where we can invite originalities, right? For example, and I can just think of this quick example, and I was working with grade 9 students this a couple of years back, and we wanted to teach them how to do research. Right now, had I given them one topic, everybody like, oh, okay, it starts with hypothesis, then we do some theory, do some research, when we do some experiment, then I'm sure everybody is going to copy the same. But we created an opportunity where we said, you know what, go back and do your research, choose any question you want to do it, and kids came up with such wonderful, and you can't really copy them. And I'm saying wonderful things like they were testing which popcorn is going to pop more, Act 2 popcorn or this popcorn, that popcorn. So basically, there was also agency, there was choice. So there was no opportunity for copying, and they felt there was no need for that because they felt that they could be authentic. And so I think we have to
inquiry,
inner inquiry, absolutely. That inner inquiry begins to be invited when we open ourselves to the idea of flexible assessments. I think that's
very well said. So when we are saying flexibility, we also need to make sure that the kind of assessments we are offering also have space for the child's original thinking to come in, right? Very quickly, I also want to just add a little bit on this. I know we're running out of time, just will take 30 seconds. When one lady had, one of our educators had asked us on PBL, what is it that I assess in PBL? Do I assess the writing? Do I assess project? Do I assess organizing? Do I assess mathematics? Now, if there is a PBL on धान के खेत में कितना पानी चाहिए, how much water do we need in the paddy fields. Now, if that's an experiment and you're doing a project around this, what is the knowledge that's getting tested? The world is integrated with science and maths and social science and personal management, everything coming in, and the seas, everything coming in. Now, as a teacher who is designing such a beautiful project, right, is also going to be equipped enough, and we would urge you to be as equipped to make sure to pick up your pencil and paper or do your concept mapping and say this is the reason I want my learner to pick this project. So remember objectives that we spoke about, have your objectives clear, then design your project, right? So similarly, I am just taking this example on this in this context because assessment tool, the thing that you use to assess student, what it invites will be based on what you ask.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering that. As I just informed our viewers that we'll be taking questions for 8 to 10 minutes, so we still have around 8 minutes left. So we might take more questions as well if permitted by time, but in the first place, let me inform you more about the quiz link about our website. So all you have to do is just have a quick look at your screens. So in the first place, the very simple thing you can do is you can just type www.cit.nic.in, that is our website for you, and here is all the information about the website that you can gather. Now in the first place, just have a look that there are a few options that are available for you. You just have to click on events, and under events there is the third last option. It says workshop and training. So under workshop and training, you all know that CIT NCERT conducts online training to promote the use of technology in the process of teaching and learning to enrich your classroom experiences. So here, just on this page where you have just landed, you can see that there are three kind of activities: the upcoming, current and the completed activity. So completed activity, it contains all the areas that we have discussed. But in case if you still have questions regarding them, then it's mostly welcome from our viewers in the comment section of NCERT Official. Now let's discuss the current activity. So here you know that we started this particular session or the online workshop on digital pedagogy on 25th of July 2022. Today is the 5th or the concluding day for that, that is 29th July 2022. So just click on the program title that says online training on digital pedagogy, and you will land up on this page. In the first place here, just initially you can see that there are certain details mentioned about the online sessions, like how the use and the integration of technology could improve the multiple aspects of education, and also the knowledge of digital pedagogy, that is the area that we have discussed for the past 5 days now, how it could enable learners to be equipped with the full 4 dimensions of digital pedagogy competence that are also aligned with the international standards of digital competencies for educators. Then you all know that we are conducting these 5 days online training session in collaboration with UNESCO MGIP, and we had this training for 5 days at this particular timing to leverage the understanding of teachers, students, teacher educators, administrators and various stakeholders, so that you can also integrate these digital pedagogical practices in your learning experiences. And also once you do it, do share your genuine reviews with us. So the objective of this training, as I previously mentioned, is to orient teachers, teacher educators and students and various stakeholders to more about these pedagogies and start using them, these assessments regarding specific subjects in your own classrooms, and see the difference that it can make. Now the best part about the quiz sessions is that whether you are a student, a teacher educator, parent or an administrator, you all can participate in it. It is open for the general public. Now the program schedule. So many of our viewers keep on asking us from where do we form the questions of our quiz. So it is very simple, because once you watch, you are thorough with all the training sessions that we have conducted, you will be easily able to answer all the queries, all the questions that are mentioned in the quiz. So here the day and the date and the title of the session and the resource persons and also the video links are available for it. In case if you are not able to access our website, then you may also find the quiz links on NCERT Official, that is our YouTube channel. So initially just go through the day 1, that is digital pedagogy, concept, scope and policy perspective. In case you haven't watched our session on 25th of July, then the links are already available. You can watch that particular session. Then on the second day, we discussed with 2 of our resource persons about how learners can be engaged digitally. Then for the third day, we discussed about how to navigate and research more on internet in a responsible manner. And here you can see day 3, the video link uploaded for you. Once you click on this link is completely accessible and you all can learn and be a part of our sessions. For day 4, we discussed design digital learning experiences, and today it was our conversation with Renuka ma'am and Shreya ma'am about how to empower learners using digital assessments. And in our 5 days training sessions, we try to take all your questions, all your queries as much as possible. Now here certain steps have been mentioned for you where you all can participate in the quiz. The first step says that you have to register yourself. There's a link right over here. It's quite accessible. The one in blue, or you can also scan the QR code. You have to register yourself for this quiz in the first place. Watch all our live panel discussions, our live interactive sessions. Here the few channels are meant where you can watch them. Then if you have missed any of our sessions, then this is the link of our YouTube playlist. The third step is how you can participate in the post session activity. So the quiz link has been released for all the viewers. Whether you are teacher, student, administrator, stakeholder, you all can be a participate or you all can watch these sessions and participate in our quiz. So the opening date, that is it is accessible to you now itself from 29 July 2022 from 6 p.m. till 21st August 2022 at 6 p.m. So you have to send all your entries till 21st August. And also, one of our viewers in the comment section asked us, is there a chance to get a certificate in this training session? So there is all the chance for you to get a certificate in this training session. As you can read it over here also, participants are allowed to attempt the quiz only once, and those scoring, I'm emphasizing it again, those scoring over 70% in the quiz will also receive a certificate of participation in their registered mail ID within 30 days of taking the post-session quiz. And also do check your spam mails if you haven't received the certificate within 30 days even after scoring 70%. Then you all know that your feedback matters a lot to us. So here is a feedback form. Just step 4 says there's a Google form. Once you click on it, there are certain questions, do fill them and do share your feedback with us. The honest feedback, they are genuinely accepted. And still, even after that, if you have any of the queries, here is our mail ID. I would also request our team to flash it on your screens. It is training.helpdesk@ciet.nic.in. Then here is a contact number that is also flashing on your screens where you can give us a call, that is 8800-440-559. Well, with a heavy heart, I have to say that this was the concluding day of our 5 days online training on digital pedagogy, and I really think you have enjoyed it a lot. And also I would like to take this moment to thank UNESCO, MGIP, India and all the resource persons who have connected with us in this conversation, be it Shraddha ma'am, Professor Behra, Shreya ma'am, Renuka ma'am, Nandini ma'am, who all have been an active part of this learning process. Thanks a lot to both of you and to your entire team.
Thank you so much, Simran, and thank you to all our participants.
It was an honor for us to have you in this conversation. So, as I go through the comment section of NCERT official, it says that it would be very good if you organize such sessions in the future as well. Of course, we'll take it very seriously and we'll try to come up with more sessions. Excellent mentoring. Thank you so much to both of you. Lot of thank you messages going on in the comment section. Then some beautiful comments. I really liked what Shreya ma'am said in the conversation. It was very deep. And also we have this for Renuka ma'am. I clearly understood her concepts, and it was a praiseworthy session also when she did it before. So you were there for one more day. So our viewers remember that. So once again, thank you everyone for being a part of this session, and after 6 p.m. you all can access the quiz link. Then do watch all our training sessions, and for any queries, you know that we have our mail IDs, our contact number for all of you. But now it's time to wrap up this particular session. Stay connected to NCERT as our upcoming session is Sahyog, Guidance for Mental Wellbeing and Psychosocial Support for all the students and viewers watching our session out there. Stay connected. Namaskar.